Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the inside look at the trillion-dollar business of sports from a deal-making, marketing, legal, business perspective. Everything except the X's and O's. We go way beyond that with a special emphasis on what it means to you guys, the New England sports fans, in a busy, busy season, and it's only going to get busier. So, and if you want to have the whole list, csnne.com. Published every week, and also join us on iTunes, look for us on Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, and the like. Busy week. Here we go. First, let's start with basketball. Why not? March Madness, Final Four, men's basketball tournament, over $1.2 billion in national spend in 2016, more gains than ever before. General Motors top brand investment, $93 million, AT&T, $80 million. Capital One also involved. March Madness Music Festival in conjunction with the men's Final Four. Obviously, sponsors incredibly interested in the activation, the advertising spend, and general awareness around March Madness. Clearly a combination of alumni avidity, one-and-done bracket excitement, and the social bonding aspect of a tournament with a clear winner at the end of 30 days. Even a basketball-starved market like places in the Southeast, North Carolina with Duke, North Carolina Central, North Carolina itself, and everybody else geared up for March Madness. Most watched sporting events of the year, sponsors increasingly willing to spend big to catch onlookers' attention. $19 billion paid by CBS and Turner to acquire the rights through 2032. Sponsors have to pay $2 million for a 30-second spot. Twitter and Facebook impressions generated during last year's championship, 56 million. And here's my take on all of this for New England fans as well. Welcome to the digital era. Remembering that the CBS decision to stream the NCAA tournament, it did seem controversial at the time for everybody, but now it's commonplace in an attempt to finally monetize the revenues, get more of them as well, meaning higher rights fees, meaning more money, maybe, for student athletes in all parts of the country. Best time of year for sports fans, but it's also the one that's most expensive time of the year for everybody. The Final Four, economic impact, $150 million for the host city, 125,000 visitors to Phoenix, about 90% coming out of state. $8.9 billion wagered illegally on March Madness, and 3.5 million extra cases of beer produced to keep up with the wagering, I suspect. The take is this. The untold story is the economic impact on the early round cities. Buffalo, for example, Madison Square Garden, $25 to $50 million per location. Obviously, all about the Final Four and all about March Madness. But how about a place where somebody doesn't want to go? Jim Boeheim seized the opportunity following his early departure from the ACC tournament to say Greensboro shouldn't be a place to have the annual ACC tournament, even if the bathroom bill issues get solved. ACC tournament held in Brooklyn this year and next year at the Barclays Center before it's scheduled to return to Charlotte in 2019 and Greensboro again in 2020, assuming the bathroom bill is done. Here's my take. Jim Boeheim has a lot of time to conjure all of this. The first one out of the NCAA selection. Annually, somebody's unhappy. This year, Syracuse. Pretty seamless otherwise, by the way, you have to admit. Let's shift to baseball. World Baseball Classic underway. This year's rendition, truly a global event. Games being played in Seoul, Tokyo, Miami, Guadalajara. The event achieving the international content just in the first round. Team USA, Buster Posey, Andrew McCutchen, Giancarlo Stanton, and others. Geico, presenting partner for MLB Network's telecasts, and 50 other sponsors from 15 countries. And here's my take, also for the Boston fan. Everybody looks at their own individual Red Sox heroes, hoping they don't get hurt. But the whole effort is really, really good for the globalization of the game. The MLB endeavors to be as global as the NBA and NHL, and more global Then the NFL. Tremendous logistical undertaking with the number of rounds, countries, and nationalities. An ambitious project which has the support of Major League Baseball's power structure, and that makes it really, really, really okay. Southeast has a new stadium. The Braves ballpark just ready for action, season right around the corner. It's a photogenic expanse of green, says the normally curmudgeon-like Atlanta Journal-Constitution describing SunTrust Park. 41,000 green seats complementing the field. It officially opens March 31 for an exhibition game against the Yankees. A multitude of things still have to happen, a punch list of minor fixes. 30,000 items on the punch list. How about that if you're opening your house, ladies and gentlemen? 2017, an unprecedented year in Atlanta sports. 2 new stadiums opening. 4 months of each other only separate them. And reminding folks of the positives and maybe sometimes negatives surrounding the real impact of the 1994 Summer Olympics and what that meant in Atlanta. Are you listening, Boston? Good or bad? We've talked about the LA Olympic selection, and that could have been Boston's. We'll see what happens to that one later in the summer. Let's talk football, and maybe we're finally able eventually to get past the Raiders, the Vegas Raiders, the Oakland Raiders. An owner-comprised selection stadium finance committee poised to recommend the location to be Vegas at their annual meeting 3 weeks from now in Phoenix. The Raiders appeared to have hit the necessary votes, with the 18 owners making up the stadium and finance committees moving forward on the vote. Nothing officially decided until the vote is passed and the team secures a lease for the pending Vegas Stadium site. And my take is this, and it has been for a while. Just as with the Rams last year and the Chargers early this year, the Raiders will capture the headlines in Trumpian fashion, believe it or not, until a final decision approved by the owners. Seemingly, the Vegas puzzle close to being solved as the city of Oakland realizes this is truly their last shot. And people in Boston looking back and assuming that once this deal is done, then NFL set for a while, values continue to increase, good for the league, certainly good for the Patriots. Speaking of potential franchise musical chairs, let's move to hockey. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman taking matters into his own hands to ensure the Coyotes stay in Arizona. He wrote a sternly worded letter to state lawmakers asking them to support a bill to have the Coyotes land a new arena with public money, a proposed $395 million arena in Phoenix. He stated the current facility, which is called the Gila River Arena, not capable of supporting a successful NHL franchise. And Coyotes majority owner and chair Andrew Barroway wrote his own letter, agreeing the team can't survive in Glendale. The NHL first needs to make the case for state-funded arenas to taxpayers, and the state speaker said, "We're not seeing a lot of enthusiasm that the public wants to foot the bill for the new arena, and until the NHL can win over taxpayers, they're going to have a tough sell at the legislature." This seems to be the same dramatic period as impacting the Houston Oilers, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Baltimore Colts, the Charlotte Hornets, and by the way, the Hartford Whalers, and others. Cities and states believing a replacement franchise is imminent after one leaves find the going expensive, turbulent, and almost impossible. And for New Englanders, just remember Hartford wants another team. Everybody's waiting to see what happens in Phoenix. Finally, we also have auto racing. The Vegas Speedway now hosting 2 NASCAR weekends beginning in the fall of 2018. The Las Vegas Motor Speedway becoming the only venue in the U.S. to have weekend triple headers of 3 national divisions in both appearances. And this comes hand in hand with the Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority unanimously approving a 7-year sponsorship and a marketing agreement, plus $500,000 a year to market both the spring and fall events beginning January 1. This move to bring an extra weekend to the Speedway has nothing really to do with racing. The action's been great at New Hampshire. SMI owns the track. It can still sell the naming rights to races, but Vegas has to be in the name and logo. And here's my take. The city's sports business booming, the Golden Knights set to start next season, the Raiders look like they're poised, and Vegas is in unprecedented position to capture the economic impact of 2 Super Bowl-type weekends. Tourism, travel, hotel, and restaurant infrastructure is busy year-round with a community understanding of leverage and economic impact created. And for Boston fans, just realize how lucky you are that the economic impact of Loudoun, only an hour and a half up the road. Those are the big issues: business, law, marketing, endorsements for the week. But wait, there's one more issue that really impacts us, and we'll have some additional input on it as we go forward, but it's the whole retail and sneaker wars and how it impacts the entire business. Well, Dick's Sporting Goods trying to extend its reach. Ed Stack, the CEO, talked about targeting new customers. 20% of lower volume vendors are trying to be put into this group. Dick's plans on opening 43 new locations, 19 of which are former Sports Authority stores. A rough road for all retailers given the ease of internet shopping way beyond sports. Hopefully brands consolidate, get smarter, and stay alive. And there's also entrepreneurialism and creativity. This is a major story. Making a big step forward for Nike and the sportswear industry as a whole, they announced its planned release of the Nike Pro Hijab. The spring 2018 launch marks the first foray into high-performance headgear for Muslim women and Muslim women athletes. Despite smaller sportswear brands having already entered the space with Islamic clothing, Nike, the first global brand to do so. The Under-17 Women's World Cup in October in Jordan marked the first time Muslim players were allowed to wear headscarves while competing in a FIFA event. And last year, Danish brand Hummel partnered with the Afghan Football Federation to integrate hijabs into the women's kits, a major market differentiator for Nike with an incredibly sensitive and entrepreneurial cultural evolution. Look for other brands to follow suit, though without the benefit of being branded a cultural pioneer. Really interesting for Bostonians, given the marathon right around the corner. And with the marathon right around the corner, the MIT conference yielded one of the best guys to speak about this, as well as the Patriots' impact on great management, what they're doing in New England. Matt OToole, the president of Reebok. He's a 25-year veteran of the sports industry. He's responsible for all of Reebok's strategies dealing with the millennial consumer. He's forged an unconventional alliance with fitness-focused organizations. He served president of Reebok North America, president CEO of Hockey CCM, Reebok as well. He holds an MBA from Northwestern. Kudos, by the way, for getting in the tournament. In 2012, he summited Mount Kilimanjaro to raise money and awareness for its social purpose platform called Box. By the way, they're opening up a tremendous new headquarters in the Boston region, city of Boston, with the mayor. He'll talk about that. Economic impact all over. Getting ready for the marathon, getting ready to appreciate Patriots management from another world Reebok industry leader. Obviously, all of the issues regarding social awareness with the retail wars, how it impacts college and the Final Four. Matt OToole, a lot to talk about. Rick Horrow, Sports Analytic Conference at Sloan MIT. Well into the evening, the rabble is hard at work, trying to get jobs, trying to get contacts. It is a business card exchange fest here, ladies and gentlemen. You have to, if you don't want it, you've got to sneak through this deal here. But the bottom line is this is a conference that Kraft's put on with ESPN and others, gets better every year. And there are key pillars in the Boston community, but also internationally and nationally: retail, television, teams, retail, but not only retail, but a very successful business. Matt OToole has been with Reebok for a number of years and is now elevated to the big guy, president. Is that the right title? President of Reebok.
That's right.
It doesn't get any better than that.
It doesn't.
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate that. So, a 30-second elevator speech on how you emerged successfully in the company and are now running it. Go.
I'll start with one word, and it's persistence. You got to be going after all the jump balls, and I think sometimes it might not feel like you're making progress, but people are watching, and I like to tell the folks that I work for is that every action is a leadership opportunity, and I had a great mentor going through my career who really focused on that idea that you just stay tenacious, stay persistent, and
who was that?
Realize his name was Ed Abrain, and he was the president of Wilson Sporting Goods. But great guy. Yeah.
So the bottom line is that it is a successful moving through an organization and understanding how the brand is evolving and you evolving with it. So good for you, but good for Reebok as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But the long-term commitment to be part of this sneaker war, retail war, global war, get up every day running a very well-known global business. And is it, how do I meet my targets? How do we beat the hell out of the competitors? How do we become more global? What's the core of the challenge today?
Well, it's a pretty multi-dimensional landscape, as you just mentioned, because you're dealing in different cultures around the world. You're dealing with different business models around the world. We've got markets where we're a pure play retailer selling direct to the consumer, and we've got markets where we're more wholesale driven. But in the end, it's really about understanding and really focusing on who your consumer is and what they're really looking for out there. And I'm not someone who wants to spend a lot of time, and I coach my people not to spend a lot of time on what the competition is doing, but just to make sure that we're really in touch with what our consumer is thinking and what really is their interests and how we can really surprise and delight them. And I think that's kind of simple formula, but in fact it's actually what you need to do.
Is there room? Well, there's room clearly for a number of competitors in the market, but how do you intensify your uniqueness and also be able to brand it as it's either a millennial brand or a certain kind of brand? The branding of Reebok has become a very successful case study.
Yeah.
So what's the core of that uniqueness and how do you pull it off?
Well, I think it is ultimately where the value of the company lives. Like the value of the company lives in our brand and its relationship with the consumer. And I think if we went back 20 years ago, you could have kind of a one-size-fits-all approach and really sell the idea of buying a piece of sport. But today, we're dealing with putting together unique consumers, unique communities that want something for their community. A great example for us is we have a relationship with probably the fastest growing fitness activity in the world called CrossFit. But CrossFit is a unique thing, and the people who do CrossFit have very specific product requirements. They have very specific needs in terms of their community, and they're looking for a brand that understands them and speaks to them. So this, I mean, I guess maybe it boils down to much more authentic approach, much more targeted approach than maybe we could do 20 years ago when you would just, book a big television campaign with the networks and pack up the shoes to the ceiling and go.
Well, I guess that's part of the point too. Business case, business audience. Do you, at this point, try to be, and you don't, try to be all things to all people?
Yeah.
Do you find your niche? Do you wake up sometimes frustrated because here's the next big Nike spend and here's the next big team allocation? We're not doing that because we're more disciplined. How's that all work?
Well, that's a great question. And one of the decisions that we made just 5 years ago was we want to have a deeper relationship with a narrower group of consumers than a kind of broad brush of the peanut butter across the bread with a lot of consumers. Because when you don't have that depth of that relationship, the value that you're creating for the consumer is really limited. And so we went back and said, our roots are in fitness and running. We're just going to focus on that particular area of the sports world, which happens to be about $80 billion of annual sales around the world. But it is more narrow than our competition, but it's allowed us to really be experts and specialists. I mean, the whole fitness area, our people, our designers, our developers, our product marketers are living it every day, and that's what's allowing us to have this kind of deeper relationship with the consumer than just making a lot of everything for everyone.
And you're more millennial oriented than a lot of other brands, and so therefore, how has the proliferation of social media changed the marketing of your company?
Well, I mean, it is the channel. I mentioned earlier, that if you were marketing to guys like you and I a few years ago, you'd buy a network television.
We send the carrier pitch
That's right. But today this machine that everybody's holding in their hand is really the vehicle, and how they're receiving and authenticating their information in terms of their social networks, their friends, is a totally different experience. I think this is really at the core of a consumer who is probably a lot more savvy than we were when we were making our purchase decisions about what we wanted to have as a young person. So you have to be authentic, it has to be real.
But it's also got to be frustrating in a way that Madison Avenue, in many ways, no matter how you sugarcoat it, has not caught up to the notion of how to monetize the digital space and the social media space. And so the way people evaluate those relationships, they're not in the Stone Age, but they're pretty far back there. Is that catching up? Where's that going?
I think it is. I think, in some ways, typical value chain in terms of marketing and media has been changed, and a lot of people have been left out. And the new people who control the channel might be a person on Instagram who's got 20 million followers. So he or she is definitely in a different position to control that channel that the advertising folks are kind of left out of now.
But your marketing people are much more sophisticated, much more intelligent, and your agencies are much more responsive.
Absolutely. Some of them are here right now.
Well, and some are here right now, which is, by the way, why I'm saying. And also, as far as the brand concerned, you're all wearing Reeboks. Is that a coincidence?
It is not a coincidence. But one thing, it's interesting that you say it, but one of the things that we're really benefiting from, and so are our competitors, is that the authenticity of sport, it's this one emotional connection that we have, has become a lifestyle. And so whether you're at a conference like this or going to Starbucks, people are wearing kind of their connection to sport.
Are you worried about the sports business broadly defined is outpricing the normal middle-of-the-road consumer? A lot of people can't go to games anymore. The rights fees are higher. The tiered delivery of certain cable systems is higher as well. Or will it all shake itself out? I
think this idea of accessibility is a really important topic, and we've got to be careful as an industry, as a deliverer of an entertainment product. In those cases you just mentioned, that we're still cultivating a super broad fan base. But I think the good news is there's a lot of different ways that consumers getting access to kind of smaller, digestible pieces of last night's game or whatever else it might be.
Are we all dumbed down where the attention span is 7 minutes now, or is there, and how do you adjust the long-term sale? Your sale is, I don't know if it's more of a sophisticated sale, but it's a more interesting integrated product. It's more subtle, it appeals to the consumer, but it's hard to get that word across.
Well, I think, that's a great point. Like, there's no one's going to listen to, whether it's 60 seconds or 30 seconds of anything anymore. And so what you're really doing for the consumer is trying to paint a mosaic of all these touch points they get from your brand, whether it's from influencers, whether it's your content directly, or whether it's other consumers, so that ultimately the consumer kind of comes to an informed decision. And because you're right, you're not going to get anybody's attention for very long in this environment.
Is there an overall mantra or business philosophy on how you pick your partners, your distribution partners, your television partners, your endorsers? Give us an example of how you make those decisions.
Well, I think it really dovetails well to what we were just talking about, that what you're looking for is relationships that are deep enough to keep people's attention, that how much time you're willing to spend or invest with one of our partners. One of our marquee partners from the beginning was the Reebok Spartan race, which is a race that you do, obstacle course race. And what we found when we started working with the Spartan folks is that the consumer's relationship with that race is as important to him as some of the other big milestones in his life. So he's going to spend time learning, digesting more what the products they need. So we're looking for partnerships that are much more emotionally engaging for our consumer.
Now, what does that mean to you? Now, how does Reebok activate off of that knowledge?
Well, basically, you're able then, by understanding that activity and the products that you need for it, to serve up a real personalized and customized product for that community. And I think what we're doing is, by really targeting all these unique communities and then putting them together, you're creating scale that way as opposed to this kind of umbrella approach that we had in the past.
What's the sneaker war / retail business look like 5 years from now?
I think, it's still going to be driven heavily by consumers' interest. We've got to, we talked earlier about the millennial. This is a consumer that is far less interested in just collecting things. Maybe when I was growing up, I wanted to have a nice car and a big house and maybe another house by the lake. This isn't what these consumers are thinking about. Their version of wealthy is WELLTHY, and basically.
Did you hear? I got 2 daughters. Did you hear that?
but what that means is we're going to have to connect our products to experiences.
Yeah.
We can't just kind of connect them to, hey, this is the sexy new thing. Yeah.
Future of Reebok, I know you can't really summarize, but what's the company look like brand-wise 5 years from now?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, if we are true to our purpose, we'll become more of a badge to our consumers, a badge that represents a way of living, a badge that's about living a healthy and fit life, as opposed to any individual products. And so to do that, we've got to create a richer experience, richer content for our consumer, and ultimately, live it authentically ourselves, which we do.
You're an international company, but you're also Boston's company.
Yes.
And there's a lot of distribution to Boston as well here. So obviously, other than being a Patriots and Red Sox fan and all that other stuff that I hear as a Dolphin guy that makes me sick, but I love it. What do you do charitably, philanthropically, giving back to the Boston community? I know you're opening a new headquarters here too, so
right.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe on that last point, one of the things we're really excited about is the fact that we're moving our headquarters, our entire staff into the city and really becoming an active part of the community. We're partnering with the mayor of Boston on an initiative to make Boston the fittest city in America.
Wow.
And we've already laid the groundwork with a program that we call BOX, which is a before-school exercise program for kids.
Now, it caused you to climb Kilimanjaro.
It did, exactly right. But what BOX does is, when we got physical fitness out of schools, we actually hurt their ability to learn, kids' ability to learn. So we're getting exercise back into schools. We're working on ways to making, as we talked about accessibility earlier, making fitness accessible to everybody in the city. But there's just no doubt that the benefits of actually moving go far beyond, whether you have a six-pack abs, you're cognitively stronger, you're socially stronger, and there's no city in the world that should be surpassing Boston in that area.
Do you have a feeling, and I know it's a political question, LA may get the Olympics, Paris may, it's one of those fights. When Marty Walsh, when the decision was made to kind of pass, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I think like a lot of Bostonians, it was a little bit heartbreaking because we have so much to offer in this city with the facilities we have, the academic community, the research community. Just for us to be on display with the rest of the world would be amazing.
Any advice to the thousands of students who want jobs from you and have jumped on every move of yours? Give some advice on getting into the business.
Well, I think they're doing the right thing by being here in the first place. I think that you asked me earlier what worked in my career, so I'm a big kind of persistence and tenacity guy. But in the end, I think too often when I talk to young people who are looking for jobs, they're not clear enough about what they really want to do. I mean, and so I always coach them to, let's make sure we go one step further and really understand what it is you're looking for, because once you have that clarity, it's going to be a lot easier for companies to put you in a spot. And I think right now you've got, it's this great industry sport, but I think you've got to take a little bit more time and get a little more focused.
Good advice. Now, the real question is, as a fellow Northwestern guy, if the Wildcats don't get in the tournament this year, you and I are going to petition, we're going to do something, maybe we go to campus and burn it down, I don't know.
As others have said, maybe the fix is in, I don't know. But yeah, we got to get the Wildcats in there, that's for sure.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Really
appreciate it.
that.
Thanks.
That's our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank Matt OToole, the president of Reebok, as well as Jason Levine, Tanner Simpkins, and all of those who put the show together for us. Again, tune into iTunes, look for us on Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom, and look at our entire list of 15 on csnne.com. Rick Horrow, won't you join us next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard?
Wingstop lives flavor, and you crave it. That's why we've created the Boneless Flavor Fix for you and your crew. 20 boneless wings, 4 flavors, 2 fries, 2 dips, and 2 cold drinks for just $20. Whether it's lemon pepper, Louisiana rub, or atomic, finding your flavor combo is easy, but deciding who you're gonna split it with, that's a different story. The Boneless Flavor Fix. Just $20 for a limited time at Wingstop. The wing experts. Prices and participation may vary. See local restaurant for details.